All right, we are in fact live. So we're, as folks come onto the platform, we're here for a conversation about essentially what's the moral imperative around digital access for the private sector. We're going to take a conversation around the telecom industry, look at digital divide, have a conversation. That's going to be an interesting conversation for Philly Tech Week presented by Comcast. So, hey, I'm Chris Wink. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Technical.ly. We're a news site about technology, innovation, entrepreneurship. We happen to organize a thing called Philly Tech Week presented by Comcast. And you might think that means we wouldn't ever have real conversations with Comcast, but then you'd forget that Technical.ly is an actual news organization. So we are having a real conversation. I'm joined here by Karima Zedan. She's the Vice President for Internet Essentials, Community Engagement, and Impact at Comcast. And we're having an actual conversation around access. So Karima, thanks for being here and having that conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. And let's just have a real conversation here. Let's do it.
I like that. So there's a lot of topics we want to take. You guys have a big summit next week. We'll talk about that. But for starters, let's call it what it is. You guys are in an interesting position. You're one of the world's largest cable providers, internet access providers, and you're in a poor big city, which means you have 40% of people without high-speed internet access. It always, for me, it feels like the first question is, whose responsibility is the lack of digital divide? The big old tower in the city, or if not, who? Whose responsibility is this? In your view?
Sure. So I think you said, did you say earlier 40% of people don't have access to the internet? Because it would be 40.
Yeah, and clarify.
Low income households, because that is illustrative of what the digital divide is and who does it disproportionately impact, which is low income households linked to a number of social, structural, and economic variables such as race, level of education, and age. When you ask whose responsibility is it, we tend to think of it as it belongs to a number of different stakeholders in this space, because you're tackling, and we're tackling as not just a city, but really as a society, especially now during the pandemic, we are tackling a social justice issue of massive proportions. And it really, to me, to us, it's like saying, whose responsibility is it for the economy, for the state of race, for the state of education? And what would you say to that? I don't think you would label it as this clearly belongs to the government. This clearly belongs to the nonprofit sector, or this is the responsibility of the school district, or this is the responsibility of one business or a combination of businesses. I think it's the responsibility of multiple stakeholders to bring their strengths, to bring their knowledge and expertise together and really think of creative, relevant solutions that tackle the problem in a holistic way. If you try to tackle one piece of it without addressing the whole system, because we are all part of a system and the digital divide is a part of a social justice, socioeconomic system, I think we're going to fail at being able to respond to the whole. So where we are, just one thought.
Sure.
What we can do, we do have the power to convene, and we do view that as a unique responsibility. What is our strength? What can we offer? And then how can we convene and partner with a number of different stakeholders to think about it in a holistic way?
Yeah. And look, I think the comparison to the economy is apt, because sure, there's a lot of stakeholders. You'd say Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve have a hand in that, but private sector has an enormous responsibility and an expectation for playing a role. And so that's where Internet Essential comes in. So let's take a pass here at Internet Essentials, because I think you guys do a lot of benchmarking across other telecoms, which is probably a fair one. I want to come back to this point of maybe moral imperative, but let's talk for a sec about Internet Essentials, a program that you are in a huge leadership role with. start us with give us a sense of this. How does this program look a decade or so in? How many people are on this thing? Gloat for a sec before I push you.
Well, I don't think, I certainly don't. My team, and I can gloat about my team. I can gloat about the people who are dedicated to fighting this issue day in and day out, many of whom, including myself, come from low-income backgrounds. We've got an extremely diverse team responsible for this program, which is responsible for low-income households across our footprint, primarily Black and brown communities in the cities and the suburbs in which we serve. That's generally our footprint. And I think what we have discovered nearly a decade in is that what started as a grand experiment, no one within the company or outside of the industry in any other area of society had a sense of what is this issue about and how do we respond to it. What we've discovered is addressing this issue in a meaningful way in partnership with so many incredible nonprofits, schools, government officials, direct service providers who are on the ground. What we've discovered is this is core to our DNA, that this is a program. This isn't a kind of sort of superficial interest for the company. It's not as other companies, I'm not naming any companies, but there are other companies out there that do give an extraordinary amount of money to a cause, but there's nothing programmatic behind it, because it requires a lot of work and commitment by hundreds and hundreds of people across this company who really are on the ground working very hard to understand the complexity of the issue and then to be able to respond in real time. So that's what we've discovered a decade in, is that this is a really complicated issue. We've done our best to raise a lot of awareness over the past 10 years or nearly 10 years about the issue. And then COVID happens. And COVID raises a lot of awareness, more than we ever could have done. It thrusts the digital divide into the spotlight. If you had asked anybody at Comcast 1 year ago, do you think there are going to be op-eds from the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal about the digital divide? We all would have said, and probably as an industry, probably not. But now it is an imperative, because learning, working, engaging in our life at home is where we are. So how does that through connectivity?
Karima, are there more people on this program in September than February? How many people are benefiting?
So we have seen an incredible surge of interest since the pandemic, since mid-March. We tend to release numbers about once a year, and at our upcoming Impact on Education Summit, which you referenced earlier, which will be open to a number of different partners, that is when we will talk about numbers beyond what we've already said last year. We continue to have, millions of households have connected to this program. And especially in the past 6 months, when we have onboarded a number of schools in partnership with schools to get more students connected, we have seen certainly a level of interest that really has been unprecedented.
So you mentioned COVID, which sure makes things really complicated for a lot of reasons, but a pretty big one, of course, is suddenly the home becomes classroom. And that's not the telecom industry's fault, but it sure becomes a pretty dramatic change to how high the stakes are. Can multiple people be on a Zoom call using Internet Essentials speed, 25 megabytes, I think something like that? Is it possible?
It's 100% possible. And there have actually been, so I can share with you anecdotes, and then I can also share with you that our engineering teams have definitely run tests allowing multiple people to be on Zoom calls in a house. In terms of an anecdote, because it's so personal and relevant to what we do every day, I had a team member with 3 young kids, all doing learning from home, 2 working parents, was living in her mother-in-law's house with Internet Essentials, for a number of months, and they successfully navigated that on the 25.3 speed tier that is Internet Essentials. So we know it's absolutely possible. There's probably a lot of misinformation out there around how to, or not, how about not enough information about how to place your modem, for example, and sort of what is technically required to get the best range of coverage in a house. And we, in partnership with our other business stakeholders, try to put out as much information as possible. But yes, it's absolutely possible.
So,
and customers tell us that, not just my team members, but our customers do tell us that, and we regularly survey them.
And that's good. So yeah, there is routine surveying. So you're hearing that. I mean, that's good to hear. I guess what this year has made clearer than ever is, as a society, we've had no choice other than to make internet an essential for learning, for public education. There was a time there where there just simply, it was unable to do so. You guys have had to make a whole bunch of hard choices. What hubs in residential neighborhoods would be opened up for internet access? I think you guys have talked about some technical challenges for that. Talk to me a little bit about how have you guys done enough? Has Comcast and Internet Essentials done enough in the face of a global pandemic forced remote learning mandate?
I mean, I think it's a fair question, and you're not the only person who has it. I think we ask ourselves that a lot. Are we doing enough, and what more could we be doing? And we tend to compare ourselves really to our own sense of, does this feel right? Because if we look across the telecom industry, I think it is fair to say we are doing more than our peers and competitors in this space. We have dedicated teams across the footprint. We have tried to remove as many barriers as possible to signing up this year. 2 months free service, removing any kind of bad debt waiver, making it easier and more streamlined in the sign up process, driving people to sign up from their smartphone. Not every household has a smartphone, but the absolute majority, like over 90%, they're telling us they have smartphones. It makes it easier if you have an application that is optimized for mobile, which we do. And then on the sort of the human capital front, I mean, our contacts with school districts and nonprofit partners in government, it literally is 24/7. Like so many people, we are working nonstop to be responsive to questions, concerns. How do we address them? Here's your specific set of needs around outreach with this particular population. Maybe it's immigrant populations, maybe it's housing insecure populations, maybe it's just people who have not previously subscribed to the internet. Can you partner with us in thinking of some ideas? That grassroots outreach, it was always important. It was always a cornerstone of this program. It has skyrocketed in terms of importance. If that could be one core lesson that we've taken away, that we cannot replace, just because we make a service available, we cannot replace human contact, even though we are in a virtual world. We have to do that grassroots outreach to help people overcome their fears, to assure them that this is a real offer. Let me show you how it works. Here are resources for you. Here are flyers that are in language so you can understand. Did you know you could apply for Internet Essentials in 7 different languages, from your smartphone? That has just been so pivotal to our learning. So expending that energy on human capital, on nonstop outreach, it is so extraordinarily critical. I bet if you talk to a number of other stakeholders in government and nonprofits, I think they would echo that sentiment. You know, we've all become more separated, more isolated. But in order to communicate what's important and how to do things, we need to make contact with them. So that is the importance of being in a spot where we can convene people together.
Hey, you mentioned benchmarking against other companies in your industry, and like that is literally the most logical thing to do. I get that. I think probably the criticism becomes when there's so damn few of them. like, is that even who you want to benchmark against? You know, if the average airline said our peanuts are better than the other airlines, you're like, well, it ain't a very high standard, you know,
right.
Airline peanuts or airline peanuts. And how many of there are there, is that ultimately who you have to benchmark yourself against? Does the Internet Essentials team look to any other industries or trades about, are we doing enough relative to our?
Yeah, and I don't really think we do benchmark ourselves. I mean, we can look across the landscape and keep track of what other companies are doing, but the questions we ask ourselves I think, are far more detailed. What are we doing right now in this moment to address the concerns that our partners and our customers have brought to us? And is it enough? So our internal benchmark comes from I call them direct service providers. They're the folks who are on the ground. You know, there are schools, there are nonprofits who are working with us to identify the challenges and then how we can mobilize an appropriate response to them. You know, it is an imperative that we show up. We have shown up for nearly a decade, and we need to continue that outreach in a really serious way, and we have. And like so many service providers out there that also are essential in food, for example, government right now, you know, we do feel like it is our moral imperative to show up in meaningful, respectful, curious, open ways to our partners, because we need to listen to them. We need them to tell us what's important. And that for my team, for the folks who work on Internet Essentials, has always been a priority. If we want to put digital equity at the center of our work, we need to tell others what is important, and they need to partner with us in order to bring that to life. Did I miss your original question?
No, I think I followed it. I mean, it's careful to say, I think you got to benchmark against other industry partners. I think that's just natural. I think whoa, knock the camera. I think, I just think it's a small bench. I guess maybe really my push. Like another central push though that I feel like so much of this brought us down to is one of two things is going to happen with internet access. If this year has just accelerated and magnified the understanding that this is a huge economic and educational dividing line, if and whether you can, you know, set up a stream in your home or not, can you access research materials or not. Like, either we're going to return to a conversation that we need this to be a utility and we need it to have some base level for all or the most amount of people possible, or that is going to be done at the government or the nonprofit level at some base level, or we're going to have to say to telecoms, we just have to hold you to a different standard. And I think the challenge here, or the central criticism, would be when telecoms want to both say municipal Wi-Fi had shortcomings and is never a good solution, or, you know, those programs are not the way to go, and also simultaneously want to say, well, we're doing the best we can in a relatively short bench. And I guess the way what I'm trying to push on you, it feels like either you have to say, yeah, if someone else can offer low cost, limited internet in a municipal Wi-Fi program or some other alternative, then great. And we're going to offer the higher speed, you know, better offering for all of our clients. And that's what we're going to do. Or you're going to constantly get beaten up about, aren't you responsible for a lack of internet access? I suppose to put that in a question is, do you see in your world going in one lane or the other? Would you support municipal Wi-Fi if that was come back after a heck of a contentious fight, you know, 15 years ago? Or do you think Internet Essentials can grow enough to be the solution to that?
So, you know, push an interesting pushing the envelope question for me. You might think I'm being evasive, but that actually is, there are far many more colleagues that I have that are more equipped to answer that question. I'm actually not. What I'm responsible for, what my team is responsible for, is creating a holistic structure that that tackles a really complicated socioeconomic issue. That is our corporate social responsibility. I would just add this, that right now, our experience with the Internet Essentials Partnership Program, which is our partnership with schools, school districts, nonprofits, foundations across the country, where you have a third party such as a school district, or in Philadelphia, it's the PHL Connected Initiative, which brings together a number of funders to provide connectivity and devices for low-income student households in the Philadelphia School District. Right now that we are offering that service, as we do in Chicago and many other cities, that is at no cost to the customer. Now, some people might think that free internet service, that solves the issue. You've taken away price as a barrier. And our experience, and it is not just our experience, it is this interdisciplinary group of people on the ground. It's us, it's nonprofits, it's teachers, it's folks involved in training and the school district and city government, is that is far more complicated than it seems on the surface. That take rates are not at 50 to 100%. Why? Because this issue is complicated, which is something we've been talking about for nearly a decade here. It is not just about affordability and price. That is a factor, and no one here is denying that. However, to provide that baseline level of, either education, relevance, digital skills training, or an understanding that this is actually a legitimate offer, you don't need to be afraid of it. It's for real, which we've had customers or potential customers tell us. And to get people to pay attention to an issue that feels really, really mission critical for all of us, but those without internet might feel differently. To them, it might be an offer that comes in the mail or comes from their school, that it's really hard to find the time to deal with that and to pay attention to that. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of, and let me just say, this is my personal opinion, but I think we, as really steady internet users, we impose on those without internet access a sense of, well, it's free, how come you're not subscribing? Like, what is the issue? I think we're bringing a very interesting and flawed mindset to the issue. We come from a position of privilege. We understand the impact it's had on our lives, but low-income households, those in poverty, they are dealing with so many other issues that those in, middle skills, white-collar jobs where we can comfortably do our work from home, we are not dealing with those issues right now. And those issues have always been there around poverty and time and energy and allocating resources and food scarcity. Those are the complex socioeconomic issues that accompany the digital divide. And I think we need to be talking about those issues a lot more, because that's what's going to make a digital equity program successful.
Well, and I think that's beautiful. And I think from a decade of reporting, I don't even discount the fact. I think I feel very comfortable saying Comcast is a leader in its industry in this space. I don't think that is contested even by your staunchest critics. Like I don't think that is the criticism. I think, and I know we're coming up on time, but you're hitting on something crucial. Like, it's not, I'm sure Whole Foods has someone in the CSR department that is really thoughtful about food insecurity issues. But at the end of the day, Whole Foods doesn't really get involved in how food scarcity issues are solved on the ground. They might write some checks. They might be really thoughtful about logistics. But at the end of the day, I think they get that they're going to sell a different product to a different consumer. And right now, at the stage we are in with internet access, it's different. You are both the provider of the boutique or the highest, fastest speed offering, and you're essentially the food bank of internet. And I think at some point you gotta get that we're either gonna we have to say we don't want or can't expect corporate philanthropy to be the food bank of internet. Or we have to say the stakes are, if you want it, then all right, we're gonna hold Whole Foods to the standard of what food insecurity looks like. And that would scare me if I was you guys. I wouldn't want any part of that. And gotta think somewhere there's a whiteboard, whether it's you or whether you're able to do it. I gotta think someone, Comcast says, how do we play the politics out of this down the road? Do we want to be the food bank of internet? Because right now you are. You got to be one of the largest. I don't even know that, but I assume you're one of the largest providers of low-income access internet in the country. No?
Yes, that is completely fair to say. And we have built not just an affordable service, but we've built a program around it to try to address it in a meaningful way. And I think that's something we need to really dig into and continue to do again and again and again in partnership in a multi-sector effort. That is the only way we're going to be able to move the needle on this issue. And we can certainly discuss, and there are many of my colleagues who will discuss political positions, but right now we are squarely focused on working with a number of people to solve the problem in a meaningful way. It's really, really hard work, but we're all in on this issue.
I think it's well said. I one last real question, but I do want to go out with giving folks a heads up about, because you guys do have a big summit next week. I think that is worth, you guys are summit question. I think we should call that out. But before I do, I want to know, I think something big and interesting in the last couple of years has been Business Roundtable last year. Huge smash of some of the world's most influential CEOs signed a letter pledging a transition from shareholder value first to stakeholder value, which includes shareholders, but customers and the like. Brian Roberts, CEO of Comcast, was among those in a really illustrious group that signed that letter. Internet Essentials has to be one of the signature programs that would play out how Comcast involves other stakeholders. Curious from your vantage point, did signing that letter, did that mark any new change in the level of prioritization? Did it reflect where you guys already were? Have you seen anything happen since that Business Roundtable signed letter last year and the commitment to stakeholders as a priority?
What I think I've seen is that consistently over many years, I think the commitment to doing what's right in the communities we serve has always been embedded in every part of the organization, including the C-suite. And this program would not have been born and would not have been given the resources it has internally to run and to support our communities if we didn't have that commitment for years on end. And I think it's just a reaffirmation of where Internet Essentials is in the ecosystem, and more importantly, this larger issue of digital equity, which Internet Essentials addresses. But there are other aspects to it around training and knowledge and mentorship and other programs that go along with it that will probably grow now in light of the recent commitments also that Brian has made around funding a number of different priorities, including digital equity and the commitment to the communities we serve. So, and that came out, I think, nearly 2 months ago. I think we've seen Internet Essentials grow. It keeps growing in terms of its position and importance and how our employees are engaging with this program. This program is extraordinarily important to the employees who work at Comcast. We have a number of volunteers and ambassadors who commit their time and energy to going to back to school nights, to distributing literature, to also answering questions. We want to grow their involvement in this movement around digital equity. So what I think, yes, that happened, that moment in time, but what I've seen is just a consistent dedication increasingly over time. And I think that's really amazing for the people who work at Comcast, that they know that their executive leadership is really committed and cares about the communities we serve. And that really is a founding cultural ethos to Ralph Roberts, Brian's father, founder of Comcast, that we have to ensure that if our business wants to thrive, we have to ensure that the communities in which we live and work thrive too. And I see that really every day in so many of the amazing people who work at the company. So I think we all feel really we feel really proud and really committed. Like the message is always do more, do more.
This video and a recap will be on Technical.ly. Karima, I think it's worth making a flag here. Next week you have a summit. I think you guys are asking or calling for submissions. You want to just do a quick plug there, and then I'll take us out.
probably the best thing is to get information that you can put on your site. But the summit is on October 6th, and it is an Impact on Education Summit, convening a number of different stakeholders to talk about where we are with digital equity and education, including a nice appearance from our former mayor, Michael Nutter.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. Karima, actually, one last question. Just, you do this work, pulling off your Comcast hat. Just as an advocate here, if you could do anything, what would be the most effective or efficient step to increasing internet connectivity in households? What's the thing we could be doing?
Ooh, I don't know if it's a thing. I do know that it involves direct conversation, direct contact with our customers and with our partners. We need to do more of that. We need to ask them what they need, which is why I'm reticent to say doing a thing, because I want the communities we serve to tell us what the thing needs to be. We don't need to come in and impose what we believe is right for the communities we serve. We need to ask them what they need more of, what's right for them, and then work in partnership with them to achieve it.
Okay. All right, Karima, thanks for the time. Thanks for being here. We'll make sure to put links in the summit. Appreciate the conversation. Thanks, Karima.
Appreciate it as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a good night.
Talk soon.